Alright guys, it's Brad from Eastcoastangel. I'm going to be putting a video together of an '05 Speed teardown. I think it's probably one of the guns that I don't have on my list. I was kind of happy to get it in. That way I can, tear it down. This one has a 90-degree frame on it. If you're holding it, you'll notice, it's a little bit more relaxed, more normal hold type feel. Some people like the 90-degree frames, some people like the 45s. I particularly, I can play with either or. I'm a 45 fan myself, but it does kind of move your hand down at a little bit of a crook. Definitely try these guns out before you buy one if you happen to, come across one. If it's cheap, fine, but, you may find that you don't like the 90-degree frame or you don't like the 45-degree frame if you're used to the 90s. Either way, it's kind of obviously it's personal preference, but for me, I'd rather shoot a 45. It just feels a little bit better for me. But again, here we go. First thing I do, take off that panel. That way I can get to the eye wire. I can get to the board. This particular model runs off of a 9-volt. Angel decided at one point that they were going to go ahead and they were going to make it just a little bit more user friendly by adding the 9-volt in the board. You can see, there's very few wires. They were able to, make the board and the 9-volt fit. I think they could have done this years ago, but again, it's hearsay now. Not hearsay, but it's kind of irrelevant. Either way, now I go through and I go ahead and I take out the battery. I'll test that later on, see if it's good, see if it needs to be replaced. Most of the time, when I test them, they're usually kind of towards the end of their lifespan. I go ahead and swap them out. I buy the Duracell Pro Cell myself. Just because I like to, keep the battery, type that I use. I like to keep that the same, which allows me to, know whether the battery is going to be good or not when I send it out. If somebody says, oh well, there's an issue or whatever, I'll take that. Then I can tell whether it's my battery that they're using or whether it's somebody else's. So anyway, I go ahead and disconnect the macro line. These fittings are notorious for not wanting to let go of the macro line. So if I have to, the one thing I can do, right now the macro line, doesn't want to come out of these fittings. They're notorious for it. This macro line itself is actually really quite dry, in which I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to cut it out and put in new macro line. Probably use the same fittings. I think the macro line here is gotten to that point where it's no good anymore. So just go ahead and cut it, separate it out, so I can take the rest of the gun apart. Sometimes when removing it, like I said, this stuff is just super. It's not even flexible anymore. That stuff's going to be a problem. It's not going to seal properly here. It's see, it just came right out, but before it didn't want to, because it was dried out. It's pretty nasty. So away that goes, and we'll get some new macro line. He'll enjoy it. This guy seems like he really wants to get into the Angel. The Angel experience. He bought one that's actually, it's got all the good stuff. It's got the 9-volt board. It's got the opto trigger. There's very few things you have to worry about with these guns. This one looks like it has Doc's laser eyes, which is a huge plus, because the eyes, they don't go bad. And he's got a great reputation. He makes excellent stuff, and one thing he does, he backs his product. That's huge. Nowadays there are so many companies that used to sell stuff for Angel that don't do it anymore. They don't back product, which is really unfortunate. The one thing I can see right here that is probably going to be an issue is the magnet for one of the wheels has come off. It's actually sticking to the trigger, which is going to cause problems. Not going to, the trigger's not going to feel right. It's going to probably feel a little sluggish. This one's got a little bit of paint on it and everything else like that. Most of the Angels that I get in have got paint. It seems like people get shot up a lot with them, and then they're just like, I don't want my Angel anymore, and they sell it. Which is good for everybody else, because we usually pick them up cheap most of the time, because people don't understand them, they don't know how to work on them, and therefore, they hit the market and they're, really dirt cheap. But you can see right there, that big fat magnet, it's not supposed to be there. It's supposed to be in that recessed area. So what I did was I took the two retaining screws off, for the trigger, pulled it right off. This particular trigger, somebody put two little rubber, rubber wheels on both sides. It's really not necessary. In fact, it doesn't make any sense to me at all, because of the fact that you can cinch down this trigger using these retaining pins, unless his bearings are shot, which they actually kind of feel a little stiff. So I'll end up taking a look at those at some point. If they need to be swapped out, I'll do that. I've got them here. Wouldn't be a problem at all. This particular model, this guy's got a Check It ASA on it, which, if anybody knows anything about these ASAs, you have to take this off to get the rest of this off. It can be kind of a pain. Honestly, the frame's in pretty good shape. But there is some paint on it and stuff like that. So this is going to end up getting washed, which means that has to come off. Again, kind of a pain in the ass. But I really, really like these ASAs. They're solid. I've never had an issue with one. I've never had one leak or break or anything like that. Which goes to show that obviously those guys know what's going on. The next thing I do is to take off that front regulator, the foregrip regulator. I know so many people that have asked me, how do you take that off? They have no clue how to take these off. Most of the time people will grab a pair of pliers and they'll cinch it on here and they'll back them off like that, damaging that cap. There's no need for that, because this one has a hex key shaped insert on the inside of this macro fitting. You can put a hex key down in there just like that, and then you can back that off. You can actually, I would use that part of the hex key. That way you have a little bit more leverage, and you go like that, and you go like that, and there you go. No damage. It's in great shape. This whole gun's actually in really good shape. He's got like 1 or 2 marks on it, but other than that, it is almost mint. Which is really kind of rare, considering this gun's starting to get up in age. But there it is. There's an O-ring right there. Don't lose that. You're going to need to, grease that back up before you put everything back together. The next thing is you have 2 things. You have a Allen set screw here, and then you have your velocity adjuster on the side. Both of those are going to need to come out in order for you to take the red cartridge out, which, again, that should be taken apart and it should be cleaned. I know everybody hates for some reason to take regs apart and clean them, but the fact of the matter is it's really simple and really easy. You can find manuals online that will give you complete ways of how the shims stack back into the regulator and stuff like that. There's no reason that you should be afraid to take these things apart. Plus, I'm here. I mean, I can always help you out. So, anyway, I would recommend everybody buy one of these little tiny Angel kits if you can find them. Again, they pop up on eBay, PB Nation, and whatever. They're really, really helpful. They've got the small, Allen keys that you're going to need. There's one, on the front here. It's a little bit smaller than some of the Allen keys that come in some of the sets that I use. I buy Eklund Allen keys mainly because the sets are cheap. They work really well. The ball ends are nice as long as the screws are in good shape. Especially for taking off frames and stuff like that, because you can angle the Allen key, off of the screw I mean, you know, some people buy high-end Allen key sets. Some people buy the T-handle Allen key sets. You can't get a T-handle Allen key into this frame. So, I mean, I do tell people, you know, if you buy the T-handle sets, they're only going to be good for certain particular screws. You know, I prefer not to use them myself because I find that people over-torque stuff when they use them. But again, that's just a personal preference. Your next step is going to be to get the regulator cartridge out of there. Again, if you have one of these small Angel kits, you're going to notice it comes with a threaded L-shaped tool. And that is going to allow for you to thread that right into the bottom of that reg, and then pull it on out. I mean, you know, it seems like it's pretty basic, pretty simple and easy. I'd be really shocked if this gun actually saw a lot of time on the field or use, mainly because there's not a drop of grease or oil on this at all. You know, which would in turn make me believe that this gun's probably, when it was taken apart, wasn't greased up properly. I might find some issues, you know, with that. But your next step is take apart the regulator. You're going to need a pair of snap ring pliers or you know, really small hobby type pliers. Go ahead, push that that snap ring in, you know, together. You put the little you know, the two little sections together. Pop that out. Don't lose it. It tends to just fly and ricochet all over the place. Just be careful. If nothing else, point it towards the you know, your workstation, and you know, allow it that way. In order to take out the internals, you're going to have to tap this on something. You know, I typically, you know, just use my Leatherman tool, and you know, just lightly tap on it, and most of the time that allows for that to come out. That's your reg, you know, piston and the shims that I was telling you about. If this comes out all together and it looks like it's in good shape and the O-rings are, you know, are pretty decent, one way to be able to check the O-ring, the outside O-ring, is to flip the reg like that, and then flip the shim, you know, the piston like this, insert it back in, you know, but upside down, and then see if it's got any friction. If it has friction, that means that the O-ring is probably pretty good, and you could probably just grease it up again. If it just drops right in, it means the O-ring's no good. Or if you try to put it in, you know, put it back into the regulator and it sticks, and then it, you know, is all like gummy and everything like that, you definitely want to change that O-ring, because sooner or later it's going to come back to bite you. Probably on the field when you go to play or go to show off and show your friends, you know, how cool of an Angel you have. It won't work. Again, there's also more parts in here. You have your small brass piston and your ball bearing. Your brass piston's got an O-ring here. You're going to want to check that, make sure that that's not all gummy or gooed up or anything like that, and you know, grease that. You're also going to want to make sure that your piston has the rubber tip on the top of it. If it doesn't, your gun's going to have crazy velocity, probably going to be, you know, in excess of 400 feet per second. It's just a common, you know, kind of a common tip-off if your gun's shooting extremely hot and you can't get it, you know, to lower down no matter how much you crank the velocity adjustment screw into the side of the regulator. It's probably going to be that one, you know, that one's, you know, issue. The rubber tips probably come off of that. Now what I do is I go ahead and I take off the, you know, the small set screw for the, or actually body screw for the regulator. You can take off the one that's inside here too if you want, you know, beforehand. It doesn't matter either way. Sometimes I switch it up, you know. It's kind of like, you know, walking two ways to school. Now, you're gonna have to have your long Allen key. You're gonna have to drop that down in there. Again, this is probably going to be on there really tight, so you're probably not going to have a whole lot of leverage. You know, use a Leatherman, use a pair of pliers, whatever. And then you just go ahead and you just turn that. It'll get that to loosen up really well. Make sure that you use the proper Allen key when taking this out. You strip that one down in there, you're going to be in for a world of hurt. I've had one of these guns come in. I actually had an A1 come in like 2 years ago, and that screw way down in there was stripped. I was so lucky. I was able to actually get an oversized Torx bit. I was able to hammer it into the screw, you know, where the recessed area was, and it actually grabbed it and was able to pull it back out. Because there's no way in hell you're getting anything down there to be able to slot that, you know, or be able to get that out unless you know, can physically put a bigger bit down in there. So again, you know, keep that in mind when you know, taking that out. You're going to want to use the proper Allen key size. You don't want any slop or any play at all in that. All right, the next thing that I do with this is, you can see a whole bunch of stuff on the bottom of that. One thing I do is I like to pull out the eyes next, mainly because it's all part, you know, it all ties into the bottom part of the gun in a second. You know, I take that off. The eye, you know, eye covers, the detents, you know, you've got really small springs, really small pieces. You're going to want to make sure that you keep those in an area. As you can see, I've been putting everything kind of on the top right here, where I can keep an eye on it. You know, the bigger stuff I've actually put out of view. It's over here, the board. I try not to leave that anywhere where something's going to drop on it. Point in case, last night I was working on an LCD. I managed to drop something onto the LCD screen that I had separated from the board. Wanted to take a look at the board, make sure all the connections were proper, and I smashed the LCD screen. I had to replace that out of my own stock. You know, and stuff happens that way, but you know, what are you going to do? You know, but if you keep your stuff away and you keep it all lined up and out of the way over here, you won't have any issues. You take the eye strap off. Most of the time, there's going to be some paint. There's going to be some, you know, junk on there, so you can go ahead and wash that. Again, like I said, you got Doxa laser eyes in here. You know, they're built a lot better. They're more rugged than the stock ones. You still have to take them out, you know, with caution, of course. You know, because it's still electronics. So, you know, you go ahead, as soon as you get one of the eyes loose, the other one should be relatively easy. If not, I mean, you can always take the you know, a hex key, and you can insert it in one side, and you can usually just gently push the you know, the eye out of the other side, you know, which will allow you to then clean everything in that area. Because if you don't, your eyes are going to get gummed up. You're going to get some, you know, grit on them, and then, you know, you're going to want to know what's going on with your gun. Why isn't it shooting properly, or whatever else like that. And it could be just as simple as, you know, the eyes are dirty, or, you know, someone hadn't cleaned them properly or whatever. Like I said, this gun looks like it's been shot and then it was put up. You know, it's pretty common. All right. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the what they call the vernier wheels. Those are your adjustment wheels for your trigger. You have two. You have one for the actual pull, and then you have one for the, you know, the length of the trigger travel itself. You know, and how far in the leaf goes. A lot of people ask me, you know, what's the difference between the two? You know, honestly, the only way that you're going to be able to tell that, and you're going to be able to see it firsthand, is to adjust them. I mean, you know, worst case scenario, you put them back to the way that they were, and then, you know, you're perfectly fine. You know, but you're really going to have to. Triggers are very, very much like you know, a soft drink. Everybody likes theirs differently. So you're going to have to, you know, kind of fiddle around and play with the triggers and the wheels. You know, I try to when I get these eyes and stuff like that, I clean, you know, I alcohol swab the ends of these, get those cleaned up nice. That way, when I put the gun back together, the eyes would be working. I don't have to worry about that being an issue. Your next step that I like to do is I like to pull out the body pins. They're on the bottom of the gun, and they hold in your LPR, and they hold in your valve. You know, sometimes they come out real easily, like those did. Sometimes they don't. You know, if you're having a hard time with them, you can literally grab onto those with pliers. It's no big deal because it's on the bottom of the gun. If you happen to, you know, scratch it because you're trying to pull them out or whatever, you know, no one's ever going to see it. You know, it could just be our little secret. You know, again, you know, stuff happens. We try to keep these guns in as good a shape as possible because sooner or later, you know, they're going to be worth more than what you paid for. So just, I mean, you do everything the right way, take care of stuff the way that it should be, and then you don't have to worry about it. You know, the next thing I'm doing is taking out the front plugs. Again, use the right Allen key. If you use one and it's loose in the front, you're going to have issues. It's going to strip at some point, especially if somebody over tighten these. You're going to have a real big issue trying to get those out. So, you know, keep that in mind when putting them back in. You know, just a little bit. You'll feel the O-ring sealing as you go and you thread them back into the body. You know, there's just a small little stepped area. The O-ring will seal, boom, done. You don't have to go cranking on them. You don't have to force them way into the body. If you notice, just a second ago, when I was undoing one of them, something popped out like a jack in the box. That's the bobbin and the spring for the valve. You've got your valve stem right here. You're going to want to just give that a little visual inspection. Make sure that you know, the face is you know, that you know, this face area is in good shape. You know, it's not beat up. This one's got a little bit of wear on it, but you know, honestly, when they're broken in, they fit perfectly fine. They seal up perfectly fine. So you know, I'm not going to really play around with that too much. I'm just going to make sure it's wiped down and ready to go. Now, the next thing that I do is I take the back plate off. You know, on one of these, it's really simple. The one thing I like to do is I like to take the bolt out first. You know, and you'll see why in a second. I take the bolt out. You know, pull that out of there. Yeah, this gun's got barely any breech wear in it. Again, you know, it's probably just, you know, just barely been used. You always want to take a look and make sure that the breech seal on the rotor breech is in good shape. You know, and that it's sitting down like it should. If it doesn't, if it sits up and it swells a little bit, it can cause you know, bolt issues. You know, with the way that it runs. I mean, I wouldn't foresee there being much of a problem. You know, with that seal. You know, mainly because they used OK glue for these. But if you have an issue, you can always use super glue, and you can put that right back down, sealing that in. You can close the breech, lock it, let it sit for a little while. That'll get it to seal up nice. Now, here's the reason why I pulled the bolt out, was because in order to take this off, I like to push the pin back. I like to put my thumb right there. It keeps that sitting right up where I can get to it, and then I just run that off. And I'm going to show you in a second why I take the knob off first, okay? Because this is what happens a lot. You go ahead and you're taking off your back plate, and you know, you've got that knob in the way and you can't tell, you can't see anything. You go ahead and you pull these two little screws, and most of the time this thing pops open with the breech knob in the way. You can't even tell, and that little bastard goes flying, and you will never see that again. So keep that in mind when you're taking off the back plate. You know, to keep you know, take the knob off first. That way, when you're taking everything off, the knob's not blocking your view of when that spring wants to come out. You can see on the end of that there's a little bit of rust. I'll be taking a wire, little Dremel wire wheel to that, clean that up, make it nice and smooth action. You know, it's always important, if you've got the ability to be able to clean these things up, to do it while you've got it apart. Trust me, the last thing you want to do is be at the field trying to pull on your breech, you know, breech lever, you know, and you know, the knob breaks because the breech, you know, pins, you know, manage to stick itself inside the body. You know, these are plastic; they're just going to snap. You know, and it's just, you know, again, it's kind of embarrassing if you, especially if you're really into angels and you go to show somebody your angel and it's not working properly. So now I'm pretty much, you know, getting kind of towards the end of the video. You know, there's a couple other things I'm going to show you real quick. Again, I always like taking the feed neck off. you know, like the crown. You know, these feed necks get such a bad rap because people just, they don't maintain them and everything like that, and people say that they don't hold their guns properly, and you know, I mean, they don't hold their loaders properly and stuff like that. But honestly, you know, they work as long as you're paying attention. The only time that they don't work is when you're going to jam your loader down in there, you're twisting it. What you do sometimes, what you do is you stand up sticking one of these down into the feed, which stops the balls from working, and then you're trying to figure out why your gun's not shooting, and it's, you know, because one of those O-rings, it gets jammed, excuse me, it gets jammed way down in there, and then, you know, you get all frustrated, and then you end up selling your gun to me for $50. Anyway, just kidding. But that happens. The next thing you want to do is you want to take the solenoid off, cover off. You know, again, you know, those little set screws, you know, use the proper Allen keys for those. Most of the time you can leave the Allen key right in, grab onto the back of the, you know, the L part of your Allen key, and you can slide that right forward. As you can see, that's got all kinds of nice grit, nice and gritty when I pulled it out. It's got a bunch of paint in there. You know, that's typical. People just, you know, like I said, they use these guns and then they give them up. You know, the one thing you want to do when taking your solenoid off is you're going to want to keep in mind how it came, you know, out of the gun, how it came apart. If for some reason or another your solenoid, you know, when you're taking it apart, it happens to, you know, the gasket stuck inside the body, no big deal. You take it out, you put it onto the plate. But what happens if the plate comes off? Oh man, oh no. I can put this back together two different ways. One way, when I go to put it back together, you know, it looks like it would work. But if I go in and put it back together one way, it looks like it'll work too. It's kind of tricky. What you're going to have to do though is you're going to have to literally pay attention to the way that it came off the you know, came off the solenoid. You know, honestly, when you go to put it back together, if you go to air it up and you notice that your gun's not you know, shooting properly, it's probably going to be because this thing got put in backwards and it's blocking the air holes. It's really no big deal. You take the solenoid, you know, cover back off, the back plate off, the solenoid cover off, and then you switch, you know, you switch the solenoid, you know, base around. Sometimes the gasket comes off, and the gasket can get put back on backwards too. You know, again, pay a little bit of attention when taking these things apart. It'll save you a lot of headache later on. Nothing like having your gun completely put back together and then having to take it apart again. One thing I tell people all the time: buy these two little tools if you're going to be taking your gun apart. One of them is a ram removal tool. The other one is a LPR piston removal tool. I'm going to show you why in a minute. Okay, the ram removal tool, it's got two prongs. You put that in and you turn it, and when you do, you'll get to a point where your ram will become accessible. There's only I think like 4 or 5 threads in the back of this. After you get those, you know, cleared, you can pull the ram right out. This ram's got you know, plenty of grease on it. I'm gonna wipe it down. I'm gonna re-grease it anyway, just because that's what I do. I'm really particular about these guns. If you send them in, I'm going to treat your gun just like it was my gun. And everybody knows that I don't collect junk. You know, all my guns shoot properly. You know, and I mean, any given day, you know, I can take them out on the field. So I just want you to know that your guns are going to be treated just like I would treat, you know, my own. In order to get out the LPR, which is in the front, and the valve, I use a wooden spoon because it's not going to damage the chambers when I slide it down inside the gun. If you use anything else other than wood or plastic, you run the risk of scratching the insides of your gun. If you scratch your gun bad enough, the O-rings aren't going to seal. So keep that in mind when you, you know, when the first thing you grab is a, you know, a metal rod or something of that nature, or even worse, one of those little like dental picks to try to pull the LPR out. Don't do that. if you disassemble your gun the way that I've showed you, this should be your last step. This should be the only thing that you would need to do. And then you go ahead, you drop that into the chamber, and then you push that forward. Now, one thing you want to do is, you know, I leave the gun really close to the table when I do it, because the LPR has got, you know, shims, and it's got, you know, the front piece that can come off the piston. You know, I try to keep that there. That way it doesn't, you know, fly out and pieces go flying everywhere. This has got tons of grease on it, which all that will get wiped down and actually get taken apart. You know, again, there are manuals out there that will show you exactly how to put these back together, the shims and everything else like that. Hell, I might even do a video for that, just so, you know, I can, you know, I can show you guys, you know, all of the different ways that these things go back together. You know, so you don't end up messing them up or don't have to, you know, run into any issues. Or if you run into issues, I might even make a video in which I'll show you the issues you're going to run into by putting these a gun back together completely, you know, all the right way, but just one thing the wrong way. So you'll see, you know, what will happen if that was, you know, the case. Again, there you go. Your Angel is completely stripped down. It's completely ready to get cleaned. A lot of people ask me, how do I clean my guns? Honestly, I get them to this point. I take off the breech pins and the end screws and everything else like that, and I use Dawn liquid, you know, dish soap and a toothbrush. That's how these get cleaned. That's how most of the guns, that when you get them back, are, you know, really clean in all the little areas that you wouldn't be able to get them clean. That's how I clean guns. You know, some people might be like, oh, well, you know, blah, 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 I do this. That's fine. I'm just showing you how I do it, you know, and I have yet to get a complaint. Again, thank you very much for tuning in. Brad from Eastcoastangel. If you have any questions, you can go online on PB Nation. I'm underneath there under Eastcoastangel. I am also on, I've got my own Facebook page, Eastcoastangel, you know, of Cape Cod, but it's just Eastcoastangel, I guess. And I'm on M. Carter Brown as Eastcoastangel also. Phone number is 978-530-6747. And my email address is gearhead04@yahoo.com. Again, I do kind of want to, you know, put a special shout out to Dr. Strangelove and his Angel Eyes, Angel Laser Eyes. You know, again, excellent product if you're going to be putting new eyes in your gun, or if you want to just upgrade, or if you want to be able to boost the value of your gun. Trust me, nobody will complain about his eyes being in your gun. They are just flat out the best. Also, angelpaintballparts.com. My buddy George runs that, and you know, just a really great guy. He builds the rechargeable battery packs for the you know, a bunch of different Angels. Plus, he's got plenty of parts on there. He's got screw kits. You know, if you want them in stainless steel, top-notch stuff. That's what you should be running. You know, mainly because they just hold up a little bit better than some of these black oxide. That would be black oxide screws. I mean, granted, they look really cool on an all-black gun, but I mean, they don't hold up as well. So something to keep in mind. Again, thank you very much for tuning in, and hopefully, you know, we'll see you out there on the field.